do understand that whatever happens today and maybe tomorrow is going to be the defining moment of whether or not we will be able to have a budget in the regular session or we'll have to go to special.
8 days to go now at the Capitol, and we're back with our on-politics panel this morning. Paul, do you think there's a common ground being found on the public education spending?
I don't think so. I mean, of course, the Democrats in both houses are weak numerically and have had not much had to say about this. So there is a lot of grumbling among the Democrats. A lot of them have been supportive of Dewhurst, and they're mad about what's happening in the Senate. In the House, it really doesn't matter what the Democrats say because the House is organized so that the majority can exercise its will no matter what. But certainly the Democrats are going to come out of this session very angry and feeling that the state has been betrayed. Garnet Coleman from Houston characterized the budget agreement as an agreement between bad and worse.
Mike?
I think that there's some people in the legislature, quite a number of them, that are going to go home upset or maybe angry, and I think they're going to find a lot of people at home are going to be angry about the adjustments and cuts that they've made, and I think some of them already know that, and I think the next week is going to be key to how this thing plays out, because I agree with Paul. I don't think there's any firm agreement on any numbers quite yet.
And you could see that anger starting to play out yesterday when Scott Hochberg, representative from Houston, put out a set of numbers showing how much each district would be cut based on the pseudo agreement that they have between the House and Senate on public education. Those numbers start to come out. Everyone starts looking at them, and they realize my district is going to be, my school district is going to be cut by this much. That makes a lot of people start to rethink or at least grumble about what's going on.
It's something that that we keep hearing from Democrats about what happens in the next election as far as the fallout from all of this. And it was very interesting with that teachers group there yesterday because they were right there in the hallway. When am I correct? Usually there's a ceremony where they open the doors and go from the Senate to the House when they're talking about passing the redistricting maps, and they couldn't really do that. They had to do everything by phone. But everyone kept saying, this is going to come back to bite you when we vote for whoever in the next election.
Do you think that's really true? I mean, this is a Republican state, and you see people voting Democrat because of this?
I don't see them voting Democrat. If there's going to be any payback, it's going to come from Republicans. I mean, remember what's built the Republican majority in this state is the suburbs. Why do people move to the suburbs? They move to the suburbs because they care about their schools. So it's going to be Republican soccer moms, if there's anything. I mean, I've been here a long time. I've seen very few real marches on the Capitol demanding more spending. It doesn't happen very much. But I do think that in the current situation, you're going to see people in Plano, people in the Woodlands, people in Westlake, those kinds of school districts are not going to be, those people are not going to be happy when they go to school the first day and see 30 kids in the class in kindergarten, if indeed that's what's going to happen.
But they can just raise local property taxes to make up for it, right?
Well, no one's going to be happy about that. That's exactly what the campaign has been not to have happen, is tax increases.
But the legislature won't get the blame necessarily.
Well, trust me, the local officials, I'm sure, who have to raise taxes are going to point out that they were forced to by what the legislature did. And in a lot of respects, I see this as kind of the Republican Party kind of maturing in Texas, because the Democrats in Texas for years had a conservative wing and a more liberal wing. And I think what you're seeing now is you're seeing a widening or maturation of these two groups in the Republican Party, the conservatives and the moderates. And a lot of the politics that are within those two groups are what's coming to play in the discussion that's being had over the budget and school finance and a lot of other things right now.
And we just heard, the Lieutenant Governor say in the last segment that the Senate version of the education budget would make it where schools don't have to raise the local property taxes. So, I mean, you got to wonder what's going to happen in the next 2 years as far as that.
Well, in Austin, just for an example, they put out a survey trying to let people at home decide how they were going to reach this budget deficit that Austin ISD had. And one of the measures was raise your local property taxes. And that's that was with them considering, I think, a little bit more of a cut than what the numbers are actually going to come back on. So local districts are already considering property taxes no matter whether we have the Senate numbers or not on this.
And even if people on those polls vote to raise taxes, just as a concept, so that it keeps librarians at schools, it keeps programs from being cut, when they actually get their tax bill, I think that's where there's going to be a change of heart on some of those folks.
And a lot of the districts can't even raise enough money to make up the state cuts, even if they do raise their property taxes. So you'll have a property tax increase and maybe 26 kids in a classroom.
Robert, I wanted to point out something on chat. When we were talking about the vote for the future election, you know, the repercussions of all of this, people are wondering how redistricting is going to play out and all that. So I wonder, you know, are people going to be unhappy with the way that the state is redistricting?
You think people are paying attention to redistricting at this point?
Not really.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think they'll find out who their representatives are. It's particularly difficult in urban areas because the lines, most people don't know where the lines begin and end. They don't have a concept of what the district is. So it's political. It's of great interest to the members. The most significant thing in redistricting is that the Democrats lost a seat in the Senate, which takes them back to 11 members, which is the minimum necessary under the two-thirds rule, if there is going to be a two-thirds rule, which we don't really know anymore. So I think that was the most important thing, was the Democrats in the Senate losing a member, Wendy Davis of Fort Worth.
They were playing around with Kirk Watson's seat here.
I think that I agree with Paul that most people probably really don't care at a huge high level who their representative or senator is, but I think Austin getting 4 Senate districts, that's going to change the dynamics of some of the issues and how they play out for Austin in the future, because you're going to have people from who live in Laredo, someone who lives in San Antonio, someone who lives in Horseshoe Bay, representing parts of Travis County and in some cases the city of Austin. So I think at some point someone's going to wake up and say, whoa, what happened here?
I think the House map is interesting because we have this supermajority in the House of Republicans, but the House map that they've put out, some early analysis says that there are about 90 safe Republican seats there. So Democrats may stand to gain 10 seats for no other reason than there just weren't enough Republicans to carve up 100, 101 safe Republican seats in the next election.
What role has accounting tricks played in what's been going on this week?
We call that cash management. Right? You really don't know the budget lingo. That's how they use this. So the legislature has been carefully applying cash management techniques, which is really, we're going to take the state's credit card and we're going to put Medicaid on it, and 6 months later we're going to run out of Medicaid money.
And they're banking on the economy being good and raising the tax levels in a couple of years, right?
And there's a road and there's a can, and they're going to kick the can down it.
What else is new, right?
Right.
Exactly. So we just hope the economy is going to improve, because if it doesn't, then the next legislative session is going to be much uglier than this one, probably.
Let me get your thoughts on, we touched on it earlier, presidential politics and Governor Perry. It seems like his stock has risen this week.
It does. I think the Rush Limbaugh rant, as it's sometimes being called, where he came out for him, and it's online. His pseudo endorsement of Perry is going to make a big difference. I think Perry is going to run for seek his fortune about running for president. I wrote that in a long story 2 years ago, and I think he's well situated to do so, and he's going to basically run on the backs of the people who were left out of this budget.
And we've seen Mitch Daniels, the governor of Indiana, bow out early this morning, and that only helps Perry's cause, wouldn't you think?
You bet. And I think Perry, this legislative session, in a lot of respects, will probably help Perry as far as how it played out, because I think he's got some core constituencies that are going to be satisfied with how things generally came out here. And he didn't increase taxes, and you can kind of go on down the list. They passed some hot-button issues for the conservative Republicans. And so he's well-positioned. I don't think he's going to get out front. I think he's going to kind of come in at some point, because there's really no one else.
We were talking earlier in the lobby just about who's kind of dropped out to open the way for him. You've got Daniels dropping out. Christie from New Jersey has not gotten in. We haven't heard from Palin yet. And it's just all setting up nicely for him to, swoop in at the last second. One of the assemblymen in California who was out here just a few weeks back on a job-finding mission from California has started another Draft Perry website. So everything just seems to be kind of opening up in front of him, and of course we'll all get emails later today that say he's absolutely not running. How crazy were you to even bring it up? But
so it goes. Quickly on Governor Dewhurst, what if Perry does run for president? Does that change his game plan? Would he might think about running for governor?
I think Dewhurst has always wanted to be governor, and so yes, I would think Dewhurst would run for governor. He has to take into account the fact that he might be opposed by Attorney General Abbott, who also would like to run for governor. So if there's going to be a clash of the titans down the road, it'll be Dewhurst versus Abbott.
I agree with Paul. I think that Dewhurst also would like to be a U.S. Senator, so if the governor's race doesn't turn out, I think he would be more than happy to go to Washington and serve in the U.S. Senate.
Got 20 seconds.
Well, it would definitely be very interesting to see all these dominoes fall, because you'd see everybody in the Republican Party scrambling to move up and grab that next higher seat.
Always fun to watch. Gentlemen, thank you for being with us this morning. Great to hear from you. And we're back with more of Session 11 here on KXAN right after this.
Good morning.